Ladies and gentlemen, so welcome. A few days ago, we had a conversation with a gentleman named Master Ty. People ask me, who is that guy? Because he wasn't around back in the 1990s. However, Sempai, formerly known as Joshu, which is ranks that you achieve, has been around since 1994 with us. But he has a little history of martial arts even beforehand, and I want to make sure that everyone knows his story because it's important. As is your story. As part of the Unified Martial Arts Network and the Sniper events, we want to interview as many of those champions as possible. You know, I want people's history and her story to be told. So, without further ado, welcome, Sempai. And my question to you is, when did you actually start training in martial arts, or even before that, what was your motivation for it?
Well, my motivation was really simple. My Uncle Ralph and my cousin Tony were the first two to get into the martial arts. Then my cousin Louis Martinez is a seafood who does Jeet Kune Do in Florida.
So an instructor in Jeet Kune Do, Foster Bruce Lee, rest in peace, the little dragon himself. So this is a family thing.
Yeah, you would say that.
Okay.
And then I wanted to do it, but because of my epilepsy and everything, my mother overprotected me and kept me away from it until I went to
with good reason. Because guys, you know, with little bit get seizures, right. and presently that's my number one stress. You know, I'm a little heavy, and it's not because I'm eating a lot, believe it or not, guys. It's because I actually have a stress. The guy saw the other day where she actually caught a seizure in the middle of her life, and we were attempting. But so she was protective. Like my mother was protective of me. I should say not so much my mother, but the rest of them because of my asthma.
Yeah. And then I had like what I referred to as matriarchs in the family. My cousin Tony had to look out for me. And then for some reason, my cousin that just passed away, they're more like brothers because we live literally across the street.
Rest in peace and salute.
Yeah, Manny was Marine. And he became the second matriarch of the family. Wherever they went, I had to go, and they watched over me like.
So you had two bodyguards.
Yeah.
One that was a Marine and another martial artist.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Well, no, yeah. My cousin Tony was in the Air Force. My family's big and military as well.
And that's the whole thing. And again, just a sidetrack for a second. People keep asking me, why sniper? I said, well, martial arts is military arts, and the baddest guys and girls in the military, as far as I think, are the special forces. And we're in the special forces, there's a sniper.
Yeah.
And that person to me is probably the most important person on the team, because the team can't go in or come out without that sniper.
Yeah.
So the sharpshooters is what we're supposed to be. That's the reason why, to answer that question. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so two military, you have one side a Marine, another guy in the Air Force.
Seafood was in the Navy. My father was in the Army.
And somebody must have been in the Coast Guard because I know. And then you have the National Guard. Martial arts. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and National Guard, Coast Guard included. Wow.
Oh, my friend that went to John Jay College, George Sanchez, was in the Coast Guard.
He was surrounded by martial artists. Guys,
he was a black belt.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so by definition, you had to be involved, otherwise you're gonna be the chump that wasn't.
Well, I got into it towards the end for the wrong reason. I'll make a long story short. In '79, just before I got into John Jay College, someone broke my nose, and I just wanted to kick his
rear.
Rear.
Hey guys, by the way, I got my nose broken at age 14 in front of a real pretty girl and a whole bunch of other pretty girls when I moved to a new neighborhood, and that's when I started taking martial arts a lot more serious. And that's why you saw by age 15, I was a phenom, because I'm like, you know what? This is embarrassing, and I don't ever want this to happen again.
Yep. And when I got into John Jay and I saw the classes that were being offered, I see that they're offering karate, they're offering judo, and even fencing. So
those are all three martial arts, guys. Whether you realize it or not, even boxing, wrestling, martial arts, hand-to-hand combat, or and with weapons.
Yeah. And so I joined the karate and the judo right away. Sensei Gote, who was a sergeant out of the police academy.
Not the legendary Al Gote.
Yeah.
Wow. That gentleman was part of the Chinatown dojo with Peter Urban, and I'm not sure if he was part of Nisei, but anyway, he put it legendary martial arts, which most people thought he was Italian, but he's Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican. That's what Gote did not sound right to us until I guess they call him the chief of the police academy. He told us one day over dinner after a family tournament there.
Yeah, Boricua.
Yeah. And we like turned our heads like, say, what?
Not that it made a difference,
No,
it's just a historical fact. And a lot of times, you know, we would see so-called Puerto Ricans, and I'm digressing for a second, and if they were darker, you would think they were Afro-Americans, what they say today. And if they were Asian looking, we call them Chino, and they might have,
exactly.
so we come in all shades, just so you know.
And what was strange between American Goju and when I joined Fontanez Karate.
By the way, I think you fast forwarding.
Yeah.
1979.
Right.
Let's just get there. So you decided to grab 2 of the 3. You probably wanted to do fencing too.
The following semester they cut the fencing out, which
Wow.
I got upset. But at least I had the karate and the judo.
Did you know that Bruce Lee was a fencer?
No, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Bruce Lee was a fencer also, besides the Cha-Cha champion of Hong Kong.
Yeah, that I knew. Sensei Gote, on the very first day, goes, listen, if you came here to learn to fight for revenge purposes, there's the door. Use it, don't let it hit you in your rear on the way out.
So you just kept it a secret?
I kept it a secret, but at the same time, it like sunk in. And then as I went along, because he said the things that you're going to learn here, you're going to physically hurt somebody. So please, only use it to protect yourself.
It's interesting because there's a quote by Spider-Man that I'm completely myself, something within the lines of, with great responsibility, I should say, with great skills, you have to have great responsibility, something within the lines. Meaning, just because you can beat them up doesn't mean you should.
Right. And Sensei Gote showed us a few times when he got upset with someone, but he never took it to the next level. He was able to catch himself, take a breath, and bring it back down. So,
That must have been fascinating to see.
It was.
And scary too.
It was scary. But the problem with me, especially in judo, when you do a shoulder throw, it comes up and the arms are supposed to be parallel, nice and straight there. I would bend my wrist and he would have a...
So you start learning the intricate details of what makes something effective and not.
Correct. And one day I did it. That's why I tell you, don't tell me, because as soon as you tell me that I did it right, I go back to doing it wrong.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Quite often.
Yeah. But that was my habit with him until he sent me to a dojo on Riverside Drive, I believe like 110 for 12.
So now this must
The
have
temple
been,
is still there.
wow, this must have been, if you started in 79, that this had to be early 80s.
Yes. He said it, yeah.
Okay.
And
Long time ago.
there was only like maybe 10 students in the class and 2 black belts. My mistake that day was that I threw the black belt. And after that session, my back was...
So this was a judo-based operation.
Yeah.
And on the side note, it's interesting because a lot of people today in what is kickboxing, when we do point karate in America, the Europeans know that as kickboxing, because that's what they petition to the IOC, International Olympic Committee. Sport karate is the WKF, formerly WUKO, which is the karate guys, the Japanese. And Taekwondo, World Taekwondo Federation, is the Taekwondo, which none of them look the same as the martial arts. These are sports that the Olympics took. But the first sport that was ever, I should say, the first martial art that was ever a sport in the Olympics is judo. But think about it, if judo, and if the Olympics are so important to making your sport flourish, then we would have been joining judo schools. And you can't even find them. You have to go to colleges or in the basement or somebody who's trained that in addition to. That's what I mean.
Right.
So that Olympic thing, I do not find it as enticing. It's enticing for the Europeans because they get paid to train by the country, but in America that doesn't happen. So that's why they're pushing this kickboxing, which is pointless karate. They call it semi-contact. And I digress, but the reason I'm saying that is we're going to talk about competition. And I know that's been something that you was inspired to do way back when. But we're going to, so now you went to judo, you learned that it was a no-no, what you did, because these people have this thing called revenge, or what have you, and your back was hurt, but now it's the early 80s and you're still in John Jay College. What's next?
No, for some reason, doing both of them made me realize that I could seriously hurt somebody, even just joking around. And this is something he instilled in us over and over and over again. And it just took with me.
Do you know why? Do you know why they said that? Because when they asked them, where did you learn that? Then the instructor, by definition, is liable.
Yes.
This is the thing, guys. And even if it's not legally liable, if that's the case, they're still going to bring you on charges, and you're the reason that he became dangerous, or she became dangerous. And this was supposed to be for self-defense purposes only, which of course, you have to build your case for that. So that's the reason.
Yeah,
especially coming from John Jay,
where
they teach, what is it, criminal law? Or
criminal justice.
Criminal justice.
And that's what he basically, at least for me, he impounded that in me every single day. You only use this to protect yourself so you can stay alive and get home safe.
He wasn't knowing you was a little crazy then, because he kept saying.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he was a very wise gentleman.
Okay, so now how long did you last doing that?
I lasted 4 years doing that.
Wow, that's the 4 years of college.
Yeah.
So you got your degree.
Got my degree.
What did you get your degree in?
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice. Okay, so you're a professional criminal if you wanted to? Then
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And then I did my master's in public administration.
Whoa! So that's something I just found out. So you actually have a master's degree in addition to that. Oh my God. That does not surprise me because you're probably the most proficient and consistent and loyal student we've ever had in the history of Fontanez martial arts. Reason being, and I am going to do a fast forward. 1994 is when he comes into our school on Broadway, but I'm going ahead of ourselves. So you ended after that, and did you ever train before our school again? What happened? Was your career over?
Yeah, my career was over at that point. The only competition I did was when we had family day at the police academy, where I won 3 trophies in judo and 1 in karate.
Pretty cool.
And I still have them until today.
Part of your history.
Yeah.
And so is this. Is this your first interview?
Yeah, I would say
when it comes to martial
arts.
arts? Well, it's long overdue.
So I got married a little later on in 92. Had my daughter in 92 as well. And 2 years later, my ex-wife was walking down, because she deserves the credit for me being with Fontanez Karate.
And we keep it real here, baby.
And in Manhattan, we lived around 59th and between 10th and 11th. The school was on 55th and Broadway. And she saw the sign. She went upstairs. She got the information. She signed me up as a birthday present. Came home, gave it to me. And I said, all right, so she paid for it. Let me go. I was a little out of shape, but I still knew most of myself.
So let me just give you a little overview. 1994. Fontanez Karate at the time is on 1717 Broadway between 55th and 54th Street on Broadway. Mm-hmm. Yes, New York City, Midtown. At Sullivan Theater across the street, Letterman Show, Underdog flying out the window with the Macy's Parade and everything. And that location was formerly of Great Grandmaster Aaron Banks, who literally did the deal for and with me with Mel Robbins of the Robbins store downstairs. That there were locations throughout the city. You guys know that was our Walmart, so to speak, right? And that's how we got that location. So you go up those long stairs.
That was a class in itself. And carrying down the sign too from downstairs.
It's pretty heavy. The stairs were technically it would have been the third floor because it's the first landing would have been the second floor.
Right.
So it was high above because the ceiling at Robbins was really high, like a double store ceiling. And but yeah, walking up those stairs was really interesting. And the first thing that you looked up like, man, and like you're climbing the mountain to Shaolin or something like that.
Something
right?
like that, yeah. So I went. First sunset met with Sensei Johnny. Then he introduced me to Sensei No Joke.
That's Professor Mike Ruggiero today.
Right.
And literally, the thing about Fontanez martial arts today, formerly as Fontanez karate, was that we had so many instructors. It didn't matter who taught. They all had their own flavor, but they had the same curriculum, and standards were really high. Some more in certain areas than others, but I had a 1,000% confidence because these instructors went through an instructor training program, so I knew how to engage students, and we had a process that we're going to talk about also, how you were able to obtain tons of information way before becoming a black belt in school. Like you go up there and you see Ruggiero, and you see Johnny, and
Sensei Chanadol was next.
oh, rest in peace, she's up there. That's the greatest female student that we ever had as a fighter, forms weapons, and instructor. She's phenomenal. Rest in peace to her. We lost her, but she's here in spirit.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know, I give her a little more than grace.
No one like her.
Yeah. There was no one like her.
And to some, I apologize because she became a little me, except a beautiful version. And I had to apologize to Mighty Joe because literally, man, she was off the hook when it came to the standards. Like everything had to be explicit detail. She did not give you a break whatsoever. And I know where she got it from.
Yeah. I think Sensei Maldonado taught the class that day, and I was exhausted by the end of that. I said, well, you know, I'm not going to come, because it was 2 classes for the intro. And then that's when Sensei Johnny approached me and said, listen, we do have, since he already had asked me
if you had experience.
If I had experience, and I said yes. And the only 3 that knew.
Let's just backtrack for a second. How old were you?
I was in my 40s.
So generally speaking, that would be one of the eldest people in the school, right? Until the 70-something-year-old comes and joins.
Right.
Which is so awesome. Okay. And again, these guys, when he says Johnny, he was of age too. These guys were in their 40s, and if not 50s too. So we had enough people that you didn't feel like the old person, so to speak. You was just part of a family that had multiple levels of ages, which is unique in many schools. Because some schools were only adults back in the day, and then it became predominantly children. But we had a good melting pot of Fontanez martial arts, Fontanez karate at the time.
And Sensei Johnny took me to the back. I guess he saw something I didn't see. And he was explaining the star system to becoming an instructor.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, really? He goes, yeah. But each star is, you got to come 10 classes, help teach in 10 classes, plus do your own class.
Okay, so let me explain what that was. It was part of the Black Belt Club, and within the Black Belt Club, that means you got the 1 year for a basic program, as we know it today, and then an additional 2 years for the Black Belt Club, which gets you close to it. Now, being part of the Black Belt Club, you have an additional class weekly, and then you also have the opportunity to try out for the demo team. However, there was also a little perk for those who wanted to become instructors. And that perk was you participate almost like a pace car leader. You know, like a pace car? Really, you get in front of the people, in front of the line, and you demonstrate, hence take additional classes. For every 10 classes that you assisted, and depending on what belt level it was, you would have more duties or be allowed to do certain things. Like there'll be a time where at a certain belt level, you're part of the BBC, but this is now working towards becoming part of SWAT, which is student working as teachers and the special winning attitude team. You got a blue and white uniform, and now that uniform, when you got your first star, that was 10 additional classes. 10 stars on that uniform, you would literally get a chance to become part of the official SWAT, which is a red and white uniform. However, that uniform, you had to have 15 stars. And that's another 150 classes. So at the point where you got your black and white uniform, which was the Delta, that means that you had 250 minimum extra classes on top of your own classes. And in a tragedy, but it just happened, the Manhattan School closed, and he was traveling from...
Well, first, don't forget, you rented out the dance hall.
We tried to keep it in the area, it just wasn't feasible.
Right. And then I started traveling from where I live in Manhattan to Zarita.
Now, guys, for those who don't know, that trip was a little interesting trip because he's on the west side of Manhattan. We have to go to the east side and way up in the Bronx on a local train called the 6. Sometimes you can catch the 6 Express on the way up, but on the way down it was still local.
Yeah. And there is where I went for my black belt once. Well, before that.
Wait, hold on a second. Competition.
Oh, yeah. No, my first competition was when I was in the Manhattan School, and they said, once I made yellow belt, they said I can compete. Because you would not let us compete at white belt.
Yeah, he was one of very few yellow belts that had a black stripe down the middle, and I couldn't understand why, and now we know why, because Johnny was the one that inspired you or set you up for success.
Yeah. And Sensei Molinaro and Sensei Chara were not far behind that. They're like, oh yeah? They just kept pushing. I went to the Town Fiesta, a festival out in Long Island, and I didn't know.
Pretty big tournament, huh?
Yeah, it was a huge
tournament. So maybe it was different from what you was used to?
Oh, definitely. But it also, what was inspiring is you gave us coaches. We always had, I had a red belt, I forget the lady's name, but she was a red belt at the time, and she was competing that day. But she was my coach in the corner, yelling out numbers.
So we have a number system when it comes to the sparring. So we can pretty much play a video game with a live person by calling out numbers. And if they listen, meaning if there's enough confidence and trust in the person, then you do things that you would never expect.
Yeah, definitely.
What was that?
My axe kick was not all that. Just being honest. But she saw something I didn't see, and she insisted in me to throw number 8.
And you would not?
I would stop, went over to her.
Are you sure?
Are you sure? Because I really don't.
Right. So you didn't believe in yourself
no,
when
I did
it
not.
came to that particular technique.
Oh, no.
If somebody else saw something in you because they knew that you knew the numbers.
And my left leg came up, my right leg, she was perfect. She knew he was going to run in on me. He ran in on me. I went up and caught him here straight down. I was shocked that I was able to do that.
I'm sure he was pretty surprised.
Oh, he was pissed.
And the judges were pissed.
No, he was pissed. He gave me a look like he just wanted to kill me right then and there.
And what was the end result of that?
3-1, I got first place.
And how did that
feel? That felt great, but kind of sad going home.
Why is that?
Because in Long Island, I couldn't get a cab to get me to the train because the trophy was too big.
Wow.
Finally, when I did get a cab, a guy took a chance on me.
He opened the window probably.
Yeah, I had to open the window. And then when I came to Manhattan, 34th Street, it was another hassle trying to get a cab. And then he had to open both windows and we had to put it vertically.
Yeah, but it was cool as heck, right?
Oh,
and I'm sure the tactic guy was like, oh my God, I got a champion in there, right? So in your 40s, yellow belt, you have this humongous trophy that created a problem, but makes for a good story.
My wife was like, what are you doing with that? I said, well, because of you, I won this, because you're the one that signed me up. And my daughter was like, because I had brought her a couple times to the school, and because she used to play with the other kids there. But
the thing about it when it came to those trophies during that time, today it's medals, which is cool. And I don't mind the medals, it's easier to carry. However, we were used to getting participation or team trophies, whether it's soccer, baseball, football, what have you. To get a full-size trophy for yourself is like, what?
Well, my judo and karate trophy from the police academy was a team trophies. So I was proud of those.
Okay, so now, again, Fontanez martial arts, I should say Fontanez karate goes through his entire legacy. He continued that Excel martial arts. 1997, I officially sold the school, relocated, and why didn't you train anywhere else?
Well, I trained with Mighty Joe.
In Excel martial arts.
Yeah, for a bit, and then
And what
life just got in the way.
What would you say a bit?
For almost a year, I would say. And before he moved to the building that he has now, Excel. But it was in Zuriga for about a year. And then...
No, actually, for a while, he had both locations going on.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah. He bought the second building, but he had two locations going on for a while.
I didn't
Very
know.
part of Mighty Joe joined. When I bought the school, he was 13, and Channel I was 11. Just to give you an example. But it's interesting because you said life got in the way, but you're still traveling from Manhattan.
Well, yeah, from Manhattan, but at this point, I was living...
Vida loca.
yeah, that too. No, but I was living a little closer because I was in Inwood.
Okay.
You know, and
Guys, the reason I keep asking that is because, let's think about this. How long did it take to get to the school? Let's be nice and say an hour. Even though it was more than that.
it was an hour and a half.
All right, an hour and a half. Now you gotta get back.
You know, now it was only an hour from my mom's to the school.
Okay.
But it was just a couple of buses I had to take.
No problem. But the point still, when you were traveling to the Bronx for a few years,
Yeah.
there's a good possibility that your travel time was between 2.5 and 3 hours.
Yeah.
Not counting the class that you took and whatever assisting, which was hundreds.
Yeah.
That's a commitment level that he probably took more lessons and participated in more classes than anybody in the history of New York's finest karate academy. My first operation from 1982 to 1986. No, sorry, 1988. New York's first sport karate training center, which I created that. That was 1988 to 1990. Why I changed the name? They kept copying. All these schools started putting sport karate. That's why I called it New York's first. I knew they were going to copy. And finally, in 1990, latter part of 1990, we changed it to Fontanez Karate because we knew they couldn't copy the name. So, and then now Fontanez Martial Arts, which we had the charter club before that.
Right.
So after 97, things changed in your life. You're not able to continue. So this must be something between 1998 and 1999. But why didn't you get back to any martial arts school then?
I wasn't going to learn the same things I was already learned. See, American Dojo, the way Sensei Algo Tate taught it, was similar to Fontanez Karate. There were differences, but similar. But I learned a little bit more with the instructors that I had, right? Like the brother Sensei Tori.
You know what? You guys were hooked up.
Yeah, we were. You know, and I got pictures with Sensei Johnny, Sensei Chinada, Sensei
Everybody.
Nojo, autographed with the symbol that we had up on the wall.
And even that was done by one of the parents from the Queens location.
Yeah.
He went on to put the stencil of Fontanez Karate.
I got, you know, he set me up one day too. I guess when I was in Zuriga, you felt that it was time for me to teach classes.
Yeah, it's set up for success.
So, that's what he said.
Well, you did it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did it. I taught the little tigers. I think they were little tigers.
Tiny Tigers, Little Dragons. Tiny Tigers were 3 and 4 year olds.
Yeah. And so one Saturday I came in, because that was the first class.
Yes, sir.
You were having a meeting.
That was 9:30 on a Saturday morning.
You were having a meeting with all the senseis upstairs, something about going down to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I taught the first class. After that, there was a break. I came over, I reminded you that I believe the teenagers class was coming up. You told me, well, can you teach the next class? And it went like that throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
You guys were still caught up in
Yeah.
the meeting.
In the meantime, you kept growing,
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah, without realizing it. Really.
Yeah. So listen, this is the bottom line. I'm gonna say this, it's gonna sound a little crazy, but by the time you were green belt at that time with Fontanez karate, you're proficient in a variety of things. Forms, weapons, self-defense, but your sparring is just on another level.
Right.
You would see where we would have guys come as black belts, and we had a ring for the black belts that we used to train with the gates down, so this is extra training. And school women would come from their schools after they were closed.
Right.
And we had the underbelts, and sometimes we would start those guys, start over there with the underbelts, and we beat them, then you come over to the black belt division, so to speak, and they wouldn't be able to beat them because they were proficient. So we already knew that you knew. Plus, you also had that many more classes, because technically, if we would have included that as part of what would have been, belt ranking, based on the volume of classes, then I would have cut down becoming a black belt by at least half or less. But to us, that's two different people. You have performers and you have educators. Now you can be both, but just because you're a black belt doesn't mean you've been taught how to teach.
Right.
Those were seminars that we went through, or two, in Atlanta, throughout the United States, and we learned how to pick up the phone, how to teach an introductory, even though we used to teach a lot of the people also, because we were the first ones in New York City to do that in 1988. So that was different stuff, right?
Yeah.
We had a behind-the-scenes thing that was going on.
Well, what surprised me that day, though, is after I taught the teenagers class, they wanted to stick around
Yeah.
to do another
So
class.
now when that happened, you probably felt like, yeah,
Well, yeah,
they're happy. They should have felt bad because they have the so-called, a substitute teacher.
Right.
But it wasn't the case.
Right, it wasn't the case. But I said, listen, you guys, you can stay. I don't have a problem with it.
What belt were you at that time? Well, if you told me the year, maybe red.
Now, I think I was a red belt at the
So
time.
at that point, if you're a red belt at Fontanez karate,
It was about that time when you offered to join the Masters Club.
yeah. So if that's the case, then you might have been a brown. It's either red or brown.
Right.
Again, the three belts that people were like, oh my God, that's a red belt.
Right.
That's a brown belt. You don't have that same type of steam today. It's not like that any longer.
No, yeah, it was a brown belt. I just remembered why. I told the teenagers that they could stay, but they have to fall in behind the adults because
It's
this
their
class is their class. So the adults and the teenagers.
Now you did that on your own.
Right.
You took an executive decision.
Well, I don't know if it was an executive decision.
Well, it was because at that point you're the executive,
Okay.
as opposed to trying to get somebody. What should I do? And we believe in you.
Right.
Okay.
So I had them stay, and as you guys were coming in, we were doing forms at the time. So in my mind, okay, I stopped the class, we turned we bowed, we salute to all of you, and we went right back into the forms. Now, it's the counter, and then it's your office, and then it's the instructor's office a little further over. I thought you were going into your office. For some reason, all of you decided to go into the instructor's office. Now, the instructor's office had a two-way mirror. And I'm like, why are they, in my head, why are they going in there? That's especially, what, 80, I believe it was. I'm like, that, and it's really a tiny room for 8 people to be.
You can't breathe.
And it was like 15 minutes before class ended. So say child out comes out, she comes around, and she stops the class, whispers, they want you in the room. Really? Yeah. I got the rest of the class. Good. I was scared. I did something wrong.
Right.
I'm gonna be yelled at.
Yeah, because in most places, they catch you, regardless of what age, doing something wrong. You do something right, they say nothing.
Yeah.
But we have a tendency at Fontanez Martial  formerly as Fontanez Karate, New York First School Karate, not at New York's finest, I shouldn't say that. New York's finest was a maniac. I was just too young. I didn't know about catch really. So we caught you. And you're in the office, and what?
Well, when I went in, I made sure my back was to the door.
Safety first.
And my hand was on that doorknob.
Oh, and just stage right.
Yeah, I was
or left.
I was ready to do a stage left. And that's when I got a great deal of praise from all of you. You know, saying that how the class was being run and this, and it made me feel really good. And that at that moment, you just came to a decision because Joshua Figueroa was going down to Atlanta with you, and you didn't know who else to take with you, but you guys chose me at that moment. And I couldn't have been prouder.
And again, let me explain this, guys. You can be a student, get your black belt, but not be allowed to teach because you don't have instructor certification. You gotta know how to motivate and how to teach. And that's what happens in most styles. Just when someone gets a black belt, they say, oh, you can start teaching, but they don't know how to teach. And it's a frustrating situation for both. And you learn these specific techniques in the school, yes, but we also go to the professionals, which are other schools from worldwide, so we can share as an industry how to be the best instructors possible.
And I remember I was a brown belt because I joined the Masters Lifetime Membership. And when we went down to Atlanta, they were offering the patch, which I still have.
Master Club.
The Masters Club, in which I wear on one of the uniforms.
Well, again.
And I asked you if it was okay for me to buy the patch.
Absolutely. I still see the patch. It has a yellow background, you know, body, and then you have the trim and the belt in the middle.
Yeah.
So that was 1997 when it ended. Your life goes through different changes. I believe you get remarried or what have you.
Yeah.
However, you are not training in martial arts. Why?
I wasn't going to find a school like the one I was in, or the two schools that I was in.
Did you ever walk into a school and even look at it?
No. I've seen schools from the outside.
Yeah, that's what I mean, from the outside.
And I see there was one school on 106.
We don't want to say where they're at, right? Only because. But my point wasn't this, that you were spoiled or used to the way things were.
Well, not necessarily. It's the way the uniforms were, the belts were all over the floor. And I was taught, you know, this is something you learn for yourself.
So hold on a second.
And respect.
You couldn't even get yourself to walk in because you already saw aesthetically,
Yeah.
they didn't even have, guys, some of you have students that don't know how to tie their belts and they're black belts. No judgment, but in our school, even today, that 5-year-old ties his own belt, and when he does it, I'm getting ready to give the parent the belt because they're the ones that are tying it. The point is that we have a level of standards, and when you look through the window, you can tell.
Yeah. You know, and then, you know, okay, you know, the belt is something you don't wash because it's you and it's all the sweat and tears you put into earning that belt, no matter what level it is. But when you start seeing them all over the floor, and,
Oh my gosh.
that's just.
Imagine my mother seeing that. She would have walked into that school and chewed out the instructor.
If somebody would have came out and tried to recruit me, I would have said a couple of things, but I'm glad they didn't.
Right, so then you're living in the Bronx. And throughout this whole time, we're communicating on and off via social media. Thank God for Facebook. Right?
Yes, sir.
And I come up with this idea. I called him a few times. There was a location I possibly would see, you know, on a website, and it didn't work out. And I had been coming back and forth from New Jersey at the time.
Right.
So I come up with this idea for a charter club.
Right.
And that was probably the first time in years that we were able to do training for a while.
Yeah, then I saw, in my head, I saw my black belt coming to life once again.
Right. So, and then that didn't work out. I was living in New Jersey, coming back. It wasn't too easy. And then you got another phone call a few years after.
Right.
This is after
2019.
Yeah, so in 2019, right after Instructor Torres passes away, just before Sensei Chanadal passes away, and it was the Kills Bay Boys and Girls Club, and he was my assistant. I'm afraid of the cold, or at least I was. And I was going to leave Dodge in November, just before Thanksgiving, and he was going to take over the program until I came back. However, Mom passing away, she got sick, his mom, and I was going to be stuck now
And COVID.
and I'm sorry to say it, just before COVID, because right after this COVID happens, 2020. But the point is that I had to stay in New York, and I wasn't happy about that. So I started learning how to use my skin as my coat or clothes, because God didn't make this, made this. And I started the Winhouse method, and some interesting things happened there. So I'm walking throughout New York City, when I lived in the Bronx, with no shirt on, and sometimes with shorts and no socks.
Especially Christmas Day.
And people thought I was crazy, yeah. Anyway, there was a little confrontation between some police officers. But there's a lot of history there. And then you got another phone call, just over a year ago.
Right.
And here we are.
And here we are.
So update for today. It's 2025 now.
Yeah.
It's May 27th maybe? Or 8th? 29th, okay. And we're in East 3rd Street. So we're at 188 East 3rd Street between Avenues A and B in the Lower East Side or Alphabet City or East Village, downtown. And it's a wonderful location.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful location that we can actually just stand up and take a look at it so that you guys can see it.
Yes, sir.
So little biased because this location literally, because of Seafood Doug, who's a phenomenal world champion stick fighter, we're here. Now, there's been some challenges because I do have a fiance who gets sick, epilepsy, but we're promised, we have hope because he was epileptic for many, many moons, and then no medicine, no epilepsy, or I should say seizures from epilepsy in many years. But what do you think about the school, the physical location?
Well, it's a little far away from because of you're in the Bronx, and I'm in the Upper West Side. It's not bad for me. It takes me like 45 minutes to an hour to get here.
Yeah, that's less than the Bronx was.
Oh, yeah.
Without having to speak to a wife or a daughter.
Yeah, that too. I've been here since August of last year. Fixing up downstairs. We have a men's room, a ladies' room with showers. And even the men's room has a little mat on the floor, so if we wanted to do intros there, we do them right there. With all classes going on.
On the wall, there's some interesting pads that I really, really love. These things are so unique. Never seen them anywhere else, to be honest with you. And you can hit them either with sticks or not. These things are phenomenal. You can kick them and knee them. And then we have a bunch of guys over there that they've been known as different names. So you got Bob and
George, Sam, and Dave.
Yeah, they were named by some guy. Anyway, the point is that here we are, 2025, with a lot of history, and we're going to wrap this up now because, let me just say, UMAN in the tournament circuit, and being 71 years young or 17, if you choose to be dyslexic, which I highly suggest, I still say I'm 14. What do you think about that?
I can't wait for UMAN. I want to participate again. At least in my age bracket, and I love doing forums especially, so I want to get back out there and be judged once again. Especially now as a black belt. I just got promoted last month to black belt.
Yeah, now that was different from probably what you expected.
Yeah.
See, and this is something that I just want to publicly announce. So of course there's a few things that we still have lingering based on some lack of resources, but they're changing really fast. You've earned that at a whole different level. How much do you think you've grown as a martial artist and a teacher since we've been here almost a year?
I'd say a great deal.
Quite, okay. And again, that's from an instructor's, coming from an instructor's training program, because you had how many stars do you have in the Delta?
50.
So the answer is a heck of a lot of experience, and quite often he warms up the class, he teaches an intro, and there's been a time where I went away for a few days recently, and he was able to teach a class. And to be honest, not saying that I don't need to be here, but I really don't need to be here up until it's time to be here. He can teach every single class and then some, up until quite a bit, up until brown belt. However, this is a team effort, and we're here because we want to bring the spirit of Fontanez martial arts and the spirit of those who have gone. Instructor Chamadal, my mother there, Instructor Torres. The only one that's missing there, just because she never trained, but she was an inspiration, is my grandmother Santa, because there's a form that we named after her, so I'm going to put that also. But any remarks or anything you want to say to those who are watching?
Well, for the former students, you're not doing anything?
I like to call them alumni.
Alumni, come on down.
Get your butt back into class. You might become a champion again, but we have resources for you to do that.
And everybody else who's just curious, come down, talk to us.
I'm too old.
Well, no, age. Listen, we were talking outside a few minutes ago. In 2019, I judged in a tournament. They asked me to judge, and I freaked out. And I never in my mind thought of an individual in a wheelchair be able to perform a kata. And this young man went out there, I think I got video on it, performed the kata and left everybody speechless.
Yeah.
So if a gentleman in a wheelchair can do it, and I'm 71 and I'm still hanging around, you can too.
Sifu is 77.
Sifu, yeah.
So age is just a number. And both you guys cannot compete in the 80 and above division yet. So it's not like that's even the oldest division, and we have to go higher, we will. Bottom line is that martial arts is about longevity, and on that note, you've been here for a long time. We're talking about, technically speaking, it's 30 years. Even though some would say 31 years, but it's really 30 years that Franklin Rodriguez, aka presently Sempai, has been training with us through thick and thin, up and down, left and right, hip and hop, and you don't stop. And I'm so grateful and proud, because if you wouldn't be here, I would have been here long.
Nah, just a little bit would have been here.
But she's not here today now. Anyway, guys, we appreciate it. Any parting words?
Come on down, you won't regret it.
AB.
See ya!
Now get out of here. We got to teach in a few minutes.
Yeah!
All right.